asked, were you just in Turkey only last week, or were you elsewhere? Like, where did you come in? I know you're only in the U.S. for like a week or so.
Well, right now, essentially, at our company and also personally focuses on both Turkey and Ukraine. That's where we are. I mean, unfortunately, there's two major disasters per se happen in the same area, but at least close by, so they're kind of we can go back and forth. But no, it's I mean, Turkey, disaster is just unbelievable. It's probably the worst earthquake disaster I've seen in the last 20 years.
Wow.
Maybe longer.
Okay.
And yeah, Ukraine just keep ongoing, active war situation. So that's that, huge different issues, by itself there.
Right.
But it's both are really infrastructure issues, right? From housings to schools to everything about them. So.
Yeah, and a reminder in both cases that that we are often our own worst enemies, really, when it comes to causing misery. It's the
we're definitely good at it. That's for sure.
Sad to say.
Yeah.
So well, I'm just glad that there are some people who are focused on being part of the solution as opposed to focusing on being part of the problem, which is sadly quite common in our world today.
Yeah. I mean, Turkish condition, there are some certain human factor that exist, but it's largely just natural, this disaster. But Ukraine's case is completely different. I mean, essentially, when I'm in Kiev, we get aerial attack at least once, twice, day or every 2 days, and it's just meaningless. But what we're doing there is we're fixing about 7,000 housing units and apartments and about 100 schools right now currently. But our basically thing is, hey, if the Putin want to break it, that's fine. We can do anything about it, but we're gonna fix them as he breaks. That's the whole thing's there.
Can you fix it as quickly as he breaks it, though? That's the
seems
like that's a that would be. I wonder if we can talk about this later on. It takes a special kind of perseverance to keep doing this, even if the rate of fix is less than the rate of destruction.
Yeah, no, it's just insanity, But I mean, Ukraine's a pretty interesting place. I mean, people want to come back, and people are coming back, So they are coming back, and they don't stop living, So that kind of place. So that's
wow.
That's very encouraging per se, But they are pretty amazing people, I must say.
Wow, yeah, that kind of perseverance to be able to keep going in the face of that kind of onslaught. You just have to hand it to those folks. I mean, I guess
unbelievable.
Maybe at some point maybe they figure they have no choice, but which many of them really, I guess I assume do have no choice. But even when you have no choice, it's still pretty remarkable to keep going. That's that has to be recognized. And just to and for you yourself, actually, I mean, you're dodging missiles basically. Like when there is attacks, do you get into a bomb shelter? I mean, do you have to take cover? Is that what you do?
We used to go to the basement, but it's just something happens so many times a day, and it just cannot keep going to the basement there. So people kind of become they don't really care anymore at this point. Just kind of keep going. Keep doing it. That's it. Yeah, it's a pretty remarkable people. And our company, to Miyamoto, Ukraine, and we have 100 people there, and they work till 10 p.m. 24/7. I mean, they really, I mean, that's their country, right? They wanna just get going again. They wanna fix. They're gonna repair, reconstruct. That kind of attitude.
Yeah, boy, that is truly admirable.
Yeah, I think so. I think those guys are incredible.
Oh, Chris has a question over there.
Yeah, do you build bomb shelters?
We do. Yeah. I mean, at some schools, actually, all the new schools has to have the bomb shelters. It's essentially basement structure, and I mean, right now it's a humanitarian conditions, which means essentially more focused on repairs of the damaged infrastructure kind of things. But I think some plans start do some new construction. Then yes, they'll have to build bomb shelter.
Wow.
One nice thing about bomb shelters is they're also good for earthquakes.
Yeah.
Probably true. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I'm so glad that that area, I mean, it's kind of good and bad. I mean, if that area is an earthquake area, if they have some certain ductile detailings, actually some of the apartment complex probably perform better, because you see a certain progressive collapse things going on. Once just one side get hit, everything kind of come down because there's no ductility or integrity in the whole structural system.
Right.
So, but I think some of the probably key structures, like a schools and some of the main structures, they should have some certain seismic details. So in a case of a bombing blast and stuff like that, has some better chance of survival per se.
Wow. That's really interesting. I had not thought about that.
Yeah.
I wonder, since it's now 10:13, because this is not a normal class period for our class, not all the students are available. So we kind of build this as being a sort of a hybrid where, whoever can make it live, makes it live. And then this is being recorded and distributed to the classes as well. So maybe what we should do is I can go ahead and now, we've been talking for quite a few minutes, but I can go ahead and introduce you to our group here. And then if you'd like to make a presentation on your experiences, and then we can have more Q&A after that, that would be fantastic. And then we'll wrap things up probably on the order of maybe 11 or a little bit before or something like that. If that works for you.
Okay, sounds good.
Well, everyone, I thank you all for joining us today on this non-standard period for the class. So this presentation by Dr. Kit Miyamoto is under the auspices of EEP 007, which is a course being taught through Berkeley, but it's a UC-wide course on disasters and the preparation for disasters, the response to disasters, the science of disasters, and recovery from disasters. So it really is designed to link up the science with the practical aspects of how to minimize the risk from disasters and recover from disasters. And we have with us today one of the world's great experts on this. Dr. Kit Miyamoto is a structural engineer and CEO of Miyamoto International and president of Miyamoto Global Relief. And so he is a specialist. He's an engineer, a structural engineer by trade. His degrees in structural engineering, but he is a specialist in, I believe, particularly seismic structural engineering, but as you're hearing right now, the engineering against all forms of destruction is really a specialty of his, and he has been traveling the world, going from disaster to disaster to lend a hand and help communities recover from the disasters that have befallen them. And most recently, the terrible disaster on the border between Turkey and Syria of this magnitude 7.8 and shortly thereafter 7.6 earthquake. And he has also been very active in Ukraine, helping the Ukrainians deal with the onslaught that is still ongoing there. So I won't take any more of your time because we're really here to talk with Kit. So Kit, please take it away and let us know what you've been doing.
Okay, well, thanks so much, David. So let me share the screen. I'll make a presentation about Turkey a little bit here. Let's see.
Okay. Yep. Looks like it's starting to work.
How's that? It's good.
We can see the screen just fine. Excellent.
Okay, sounds good. So here goes. So this earthquake, magnitude 7.8, 7.5, is a big one. I'm talking about that the area affected is somewhere between 300 to 500 kilometer long and 100 kilometer to 200 kilometer wide. And it's a very mountainous area. And about 14 million people affected in this area in a high acceleration area. So it's a big earthquake. I mean, it's affected a huge area. That makes it extremely difficult. And a somewhat remote area of Turkey in a southern, you can see that kind of southern border to the Syria. And Istanbul is that you can see in the top. It's essentially top west, like in the area. So it's pretty far from that capital. I mean, Turkey has been preparing this type of earthquake since 1999. The Izmit earthquake they had there, but mainly they are kind of a focus on the Istanbul earthquake. That was the whole thing. So they just did not expect that this could happen. I mean, everybody knew that area is a major seismic area because there's a huge fault line going through there. And but the last earthquake was over 100 years ago, So there's this so-called feeling, well, hey, that nothing would happen in the area. So that was the biggest surprise for them. And so Turkey, invested billions of dollars since last 20 to 25 years, the earthquake. And obviously, as you can see, the actual physical damage is much more than expected, and there are many reasons for it. And that's why I want to kind of get into the why this whole things failed and what was actually went right and what went fail and what's the next step for them. So this earthquake, just think about magnitude 7.8 and 7.5. That's a big energy released. The Northridge earthquake in LA was like about 6.8 or something like that in 1994. So you're looking at this earthquake had a 1,000 times more energy released in the first one. It's at 4 a.m. in the morning. Everybody was sleeping it, right? And 10,000 apartments collapsed and everybody died in there. And 4 hours after, magnitude 7.5. This also collapsed many, but fortunately, obviously, after 7.8, it was out from buildings and structures. So therefore, at the 7.5, you don't get buried in there. So that was the case like that. Affected 14 million people. It's affected about 460,000 buildings around there. We calculate using satellite image, and about 10,000 buildings collapsed, and 100,000 to 200,000 are damaged. Depends on, some are heavily damaged, some are moderate, some are architectural damage, and which means 10,000 buildings collapse means usually about 3 times more. So you're looking about the 30 to 40,000 buildings probably have to come down to reconstruct. And most of the structures there is the mid-rise to high-rise apartments. People live in, even the country, small towns, villages, people live in a high-density environment. They're concrete structures. And that's pretty much how they live like that. Killed almost 50,000 people, and some between 100,000, 200 people injured. That's a huge event, And right now, 2.5 million people are essentially homeless, and so they are living in their official tent cities in the area or unofficial tents. They live in everywhere, and many 100,000 people evacuate outside of this province area. And somewhere between 40 to 80 billion dollar damage are expected. Direct damage, which means actual infrastructure damage, and obviously loss of jobs, loss of income, loss of the GNP, stuff like that is not here. And one of the interesting things we did for this earthquake was that we are there in the initial days. I was there like 48 hours after, and the reason we are able to quickly be there is essentially we have a presence in Turkey since 2009. We are working on a seismic strengthening program in Istanbul. So we have a pretty sizable presence in the north. So we're able to react to it really quickly. So actually our local staff was there like almost a day after. So we collaborated with JPL NASA, and they have this damage map. Essentially what they do is they every 7 to 9 hours, there's satellite going through pretty much every place of Earth, and take pictures before and after, and overlay it. You can see a displacement difference between before and after. So therefore that they can actually provide which area could potentially be damaged based on displacement of the physical environment. And then so what we done is we downloaded data, we applied all the building envelope to it. So we assigned it how many buildings there, how many buildings are damaged. So that's the map we created for every major cities, about 60 cities and towns and villages, and which we figured out. Based on that, about 21% is damaged and 80% is undamaged. I mean, if you see the pictures in news, and you can see the huge damage there. It is true. Some of the towns are completely decimated. The town called Hatay, which I showed some picture of it there, looked like a nuclear blast went through. Just everything's gone. But some of the cities, it's unscaled, undamaged, and there are many reasons for that, which I can get into. But 21% damage is actually pretty significant. Think about it. You're talking about the 14 million people affected, right? So 20% of 14 million people. You're talking about 3-4 million people who actually lost their homes completely. That's the basically that situation we're facing now. So why this failed? Why the Turkey's investing billions of dollars in the last 20 to 25 years. Why did 45,000 people die? Well, there's a few main things here. One is the Turkish building code change in 1998. So anything, say, built prior to 2000, there's no seismic consideration at all. What we call non-ductile details, which means that especially concrete structures, earthquake motion is very brittle failure mode you see. And that's really an issue. So anything built 2000, no good. And so some of the towns, does contain a lot of older buildings and does have no seismic strengthening, nothing going on. So it's not good. And even that we have some huge issue built modern constructions, because there's no licensed systems and contractors or engineers. So anyone can be contractor. David, if you want to be a Turkish contractor, you can be one tomorrow. So that's the issue. And there's no inspection requirement by the independent engineers for the most of the commercial structures. So generally speaking, public buildings perform well because of the engineers need to be inspect all those places like schools and hospitals, stuff like that. And that's a huge issue. I mean, that's probably a big issue there. And I saw a lot of like a news after that, like they, arrested 100 contractors and engineers. I mean, because of the accusation of fraud or whatever. I mean, I'm sure some people probably done dishonest thing. I can imagine, people are not perfect. But I saw the evidence of out there. I think contractors try to do things. I don't see that they skip the amount of steel, because once you go into the site, you see so much amount of rebar, so much more concrete, you can see things out there. But some of the key things are missing it. For example, it missing the 135-degree hooks, which means that if you build the columns, the pillar, which supporting the floor above, right? The columns, you see the rebar, and there's the tie or hoops, we call. That need to be stay in. If that thing is disengaged, actually whole columns actually explode under the seismic motion. But little things, for example, that in a 1998 building code change in the US, 1972, by the way, the hook is engaging 135-degree hook like this, so it's engaged in. If it's not, it pops and the whole thing breaks. So little things like that, super critical, right? But I saw those things missing, or aggregate when we make a concrete, there's a cement and little gravels, those need to be sharp edged one. But I see many cases use the river rocks, smooth rocks. So, if you get the mountain 7.8, 7.5 happen, I mean, you got to do it right, So I saw the many cases contractor done right for the 80% of the time, right? But problem is that 80% right, it's not good enough. Has to be 95% right to survive through the mountain 7.8 and 7.5 there. So to me, just observing it, that inspection components is a huge issue. Because the Turkish building codes are fine. There is nothing wrong with it. It's a mirrored American building code, and they have performance-based engineering and all that stuff in there. And Turkish engineers, their capacity is fantastic. I mean, that's one of the best earthquake structural engineers out in the world exist. But without inspection, it killed people. That's exactly what happened out there, So this is some of coastal cities we went through. I mean, it's the amount of damage. This is a hot Iskederun you just saw, and it's by the sea. So it's a lot of soft soil things going on. So if you got the building system on soft soil, that area, you're gonna have a huge damage. For example, this particular city is a 40% damage index. I mean, that's huge. And it's town of Hatay. This river, you can drive along the road for maybe, I don't know, half an hour, edge to edge town. You can see destruction of like this, just continual basis, something I haven't seen that. Usually destruction happen like a pockets, usually like that, but not this particular town. You're talking about whole things decimated by it. It's just the incredible, because of soft soil next to the river really kill them. I mean, because if it's mountains right next, if you go to the mountainside, you don't see any damage at all whatsoever because it's a rocky side. It's just that that kind of geological things makes a huge difference. If the bad building or older buildings, this case older building, sits on the soft soil, it's like collapse almost guaranteed. if the older buildings sits on the rock site, they actually perform good, believe it or not. So it's just the geological thing is the huge reason of it. You can see that, this is along the river, Hatay. Hatay is an ancient town of Antioch. I mean, just essentially the whole thing's lost, man. I haven't seen that. I haven't seen it since 2008 China, the Sichuan earthquake, some parts of Sichuan earthquake magnitude 8 hits. I saw things like this, but never seen like that for a while. It's total destructions, total loss, essentially. That's Hatay. You can see damage index about 41%. It's really impacted through this soft soil area. Once come to the rock side, you don't see that much damage. So you can kind of keep going. You can see this is the same Hatay province, but some towns you see not much damage in there. We see like this throughout the world. And I mean, it's geologically, what kind of soil you have is important, but also geographically how actually located to make actually difference too. Like kind of like tsunami in Japan, and some old bay is completely gone, and some bay has no touch. Depends on how the wave, coming through into that area. Same thing apply to the earthquake too. Just some area don't get touched by it, Now, so older buildings perform that, right? By new construction, this is in Hatay, in a city where everything else completely gone. This is a new construction, has no damage at all. You can see, it's definitely if it's done right, it's not an issue. You can build things. You don't have to worry about soft soil. You can build some good structure like this one. This one, do little small structures perform fine without no cracks in there. So it's definitely if you do right, it's just fine. It's just like hospitals in an area. Many, one collapse actually for the older construction, and even new construction, it's quite a bit of damage in it, like a non-structural damage. So there is no, you can use it. However, about a dozen base isolated hospitals, they're functional. Base isolation means essentially decoupled the building. There's a building sits on it from a ground by have an air gap, or you can put air gap. So we put the base isolators made of essentially it's rollers. Okay, so it's decouples. 12 hospitals like that in an area, which is actually functional after that. This magnitude 7.75. So technology does work, and I think that's something we see that the big deal. I mean, new construction hospital didn't work right there. No, there's no structural damage there, but just non-structural damage, the lights and medical equipment, everything else going haywire. It's very difficult to contain for magnitude 7.5 hits on it. But the base isolation essentially the isolated any kind of motion to the structure itself, so that protects the functionality of it. That's a very important one. Many people live in an apartment like this, very typical one you see out there. And so construction is it's a reinforced cast in place reinforced concrete columns and the floors as the beams. So what we call moment frames, which means that beams and columns actually take all the earthquakes. And there's an infill walls. So between the concrete, it's infill with the some cases like a red, it's a red brick, hollow red brick, or the concrete masonry unit, like hollow masonry lightweight units fits in it. Then they put plaster over that. Now, this plaster, it was so critical. That's actually, it took a lot of energy per se. And you see a lot of diagonal shear failures like you see out here. And it almost protected the non-structural elements. So I saw a lot of cases like that. So having that, sometimes damage could be looks significant, but in many cases concentrate in this non-structural components of it. So that actually can be easily, repaired and put it back. That's actually a very important one. So that's pretty much most of the world built this way, by the way, exception of the US, just reinforced concrete with this brick infill or concrete masonry unit infill. And the concrete masonry units infill is very important structurally. This is a typical thing you see out there. It's a soft story vehicle. This used to be ground floor. It's collapsed because usually retails and commercial, which is not much walls underneath of it. So very heavy, very stiff upper floors, very weak, soft ground floor. It's collapsed. It's like you see a lot like there, thousands throughout the whole area. So, see, this new construction perform actually good. It's a town which is destroyed about 30% of it, but you can see the so-called pounding damage. So this building next to each other, pounding each other. Fortunately, in this case, is the floor-to-floor matches. So it's actually worked just fine, just pounding each other. But the problem of the pounding is that if the floor has different, it will undermine the columns next door. It will cause a collapse like that. And we saw a case like that, but this particular case was fine because of floor matches or pounding each other. Absorb energy, actually. Gaziantep, so you see like a 3% damage. This is one of the main cities out there for almost 1 million people living there. And fortunately, the damage is only 3%. It's a lot to do with the soil. It's you can see a lot of exposed rock. I saw that. It's very solid soil in the mountains. So that's the case of that, Gaziantep like that. You see pounding damage. Yeah, you see the sceneries like they threw out. Now, one more thing, the Turkish government response, despite the media, they're beating up the Turkish government pretty bad about the slowness and response or emergency condition like this. And I 100% disagree on that, by the way. I mean, this is one of the probably most robust response I've been seeing personally, maybe besides the Japanese tsunami by the Japanese government. We are there day 2, day 3. They deployed almost 150,000 warm tents, by the way. And today, there are about 300,000 of them they deployed out. It's a warm tent, like a small tent. And also, that by third day or so, they open up all the major roads, all the secondary roads and the third roads. So they activate the private sector to remove the debris. So you have access throughout of it. And by fourth day, they're repairing a freeway system. It's open up, completely open. When I was there in the third, fourth day, we're driving through, just there's no issue at all. You can drive through this highway, freeway in speed limit, essentially. It's pretty amazing. I never seen anything like that. And also the Hatay airport, it's damaged pretty heavily, but they opened the thing in the 4th days. And they had almost 10,000 international search and rescue team. That's a huge number. That's probably biggest international search and rescue deployment like that. And they organized really well. They put the international different, come from different countries. They put on a different jurisdiction cities really rapidly. And they did the damage assessment. They complete already in the first about 3 to 4 weeks time. They assessed about 300,000 objects out there, and they put QR code for each of it. I mean, who would do that? I mean, I think they did a fantastic job as far as the response is concerned. Best I've ever seen. And I saw demolitions too. The demolition. This is a picture I took it's like a 4th day. I mean, they started doing the demolition really quickly, and some case maybe I thought it's maybe too fast, just taking down because there's no detailed assessment. So some of the structures damage we consider to be minor or moderate, be able to fix pretty quickly, but they're taking down, which is actually the good and bad about it. I mean, the good is you can see the kind of progress, something going on into the population, which is important elements. A bad part of it, if you take the building down, it's really hard to build back. I mean, there's some certain residential insurance exists in Turkey, and there obviously Turkey is a very robust construction nation. I mean, Turkish contracts all over the world, from Africa to the Middle East, all over the places. So they have a huge construction capacity. But to build you're talking about 10,000 collapsed buildings on top of it, maybe 30. So total 30 to 40,000 buildings need to be reconstructed. I mean, you're talking about each building costs about average about $1 million. So you're talking about 30,000 buildings. You're talking about, what is it? $30 billion, right? I mean, just that. I'm talking, that's a very small part of this whole damage. You're talking about 100,000 damage, right? So that's why it's very important to identify the repairable buildings and structures, to repair it, strengthen it. That's actually extremely, extremely critical. If you don't do it, you lose the whole city. You lose the whole country, by the way. I've seen this before in like 2011, the Christchurch earthquake. town of about 400,000 people. And insurance was very robust. I think something like tens of billions of dollars being injected by insurance money. But they didn't preserve the buildings. They just took everything down. About 2,400 buildings, mid-rise buildings in the city of Christchurch at the time. They probably took down 2,200 of them. 90% of it's gone. And once they take it down, it's a very difficult build back because people will leave, they're going to wait around to reconstruct for 2 years, 3 years, right? People will leave. They will find different jobs, different schools, gone. So society is gone. So yeah, today, Christchurch, I would say, I don't know, maybe half built, maybe 70% built. Still, there's quite a bit of empty space there. But difference is different town, different people. It's a completely different place, So, and it takes a long time, right? I'm talking about more than 12 years now. It's definitely the repair is complete. Repair it's very important part of it. Port-au-Prince, Haiti. I mean, it's kind of interesting contrast. So that time, about 200,000 buildings are damaged and killed about 300,000 people in the magnitude 7 in 2010. And obviously, Haiti doesn't have money to take everything down then reconstruct. So the repair is something they put focus on. So about 100,000 buildings easy to repair. That's identified like that. So Haitian repaired those buildings. So by 2014, about 4 years after city of Port-au-Prince, you are not able to see the scar from an earthquake. I mean, that's pretty incredible because focus on repair, right? And so just that type of approach is really critical. We see this over and over and over again, to preserve much as possible. Sovereign Search and Rescue team out there. I mean, those people, this particular earthquake made a huge difference. So they did safety at hundreds, even thousands of lives. It's every day there's the dozen people being rescued, even at a couple weeks after, which is a pretty amazing things. And they do take incredible personal risk to be into the debris sites, the collapse sites. Here's what the Turkish government did. You can see QR code sit on that. So every building be assessed really rapidly and categorized in 5 different categories from a collapse to no damage. And put a QR code and people can download. Now, I think that's good because there's some good information in there. It's bad because you can see see what happened to it, just look at it. And US and other countries and typical international standards is use the color signals, red, yellow, green. You can imagine red is bad, right? Cannot go in. Yellow is a limited entry. Green is inspected, don't see damage. So that way, yellow, green, red, you stick on a building so you can see really rapidly. That's a really, really important communication tool. But this particular case, they didn't do that. So that's I can see some gap was there. But regardless, I mean, the government assessed some like 300,000 buildings in first few weeks. It's a remarkable thing they did. So this is a town of Hatay, and many people participate in part of this, even now get paid. This is a family actually we met, and they give us a soup. They're making it. Guess where they're from? They're actually from Syria originally, and they are refugees in the area. And this area estimated about 10 to 20% of people are Syrian origin refugees, recent refugees. And so those Syrian family making the soup kitchen on the side of the road, and whoever coming through, they just give it a soup, I mean, just this incredible, just a human, it's kindness comes out in this kind of a disaster scenes all the time like that. So next step for us, so we have as I said, we have a huge presence in Turkey, and our company we do is not only just we assess damage, but also we get into the recovery, reconstruction components of it. So first, we already things we're doing that under the United Nations, and we provide this information as soon as we create that. we share with the UN, we share with the governments, national government, local government, World Bank, US Embassy. So we're going to be started working with US government, USAID, and also UN agencies and some of the international nonprofit to, as I said, what's the low-hanging fruits? Repair, identify, repair, lightly or moderate damaged housing stocks. That's such a critical part of a recovery process. So we are started categorizing that what's the able to repair and what is that, how much the cost. And so each of us, so this is Osmania, you can see at each building stock, we identify that and gonna assess it and organize the whole construction after that. So that's the whole steps of it. So again, this NASA map has been extremely helpful. This Osmania town's a town about 2 million people, and a total building stocks about 34,000 buildings. And based on that, we know that about 5,500 buildings impacted. So those are buildings we're gonna actually look at. Just quickly about the Syria. So Syria, and if you use the same methodology as a NASA map, about 2% total damage in affected area because of this distance of it. But Syria's condition, this area is completely different. Even damage may be at kind of spread out, but it's a completely war zone as different function from a Turkish control area to regime to the rebels, just mixed everywhere. And it has a huge amount of the internal displacement people living in it, and many huge campsites throughout. And there's a huge hygiene issue exists. So we are in a process to cross border to the Syria to understand that the whole context of it. So we come up with the idea of both a shelter and a wash, the water and the hygiene, the health components of it to address, especially in campsites. So that's something we're actually working with the United Nations right now as we speak. So this earthquake was a bad one, as I said. 45,000 people dead, probably at damaged 10,000, well, collapsed 10,000 buildings, and 30,000 buildings probably need to take it down, and 100,000 to 200,000 buildings damage is a huge impact. And you're talking about you probably need about $100 billion to build back. But one thing I do know about Turkish people, I'm working with them since 2009 now. I mean, if any nation can build back stronger and better, they'll be Turkish. I have no doubt in my mind. We talked about the shortcomings of engine process of inspection. That would definitely fix immediately. And they are very entrepreneurial, fast moving, even government too. And this is a country, they're able to build this $4 billion international airport within 2 years with no tax money involved, the private sector involvement. So this country can do things like that. So I have no doubt in my mind, they'll come back strong. But this is a huge earthquake, huge disaster. I think one nation itself cannot do that. That's why the international assistance for many aspects of it, I think, do critical. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much. That was amazing. I learned a great deal from this that I had not suspected. So thank you very much for sharing your experiences with us and your wisdom with us. We'd like to open things up for questions from our group here. And you can put things in the chat, or you can go ahead and just speak out loud. Okay, well maybe I'll get things. Oh, I'm sorry. Was there somebody want a question right there? Okay, one thing that I might start out with would be I think your point that the engineering in Turkey in general should have been fine, that the building codes should have been fine, but there were these kind of the small details are what really made the disaster so bad. are there other places worldwide where you might expect something like this? You know, where a country in principle should be able to be resilient against a disaster, but for whatever reason you suspect is probably not.
I think at pretty much every country you can imagine. I mean, there are two issues, right? Older stock of buildings and inspection issue of a new construction. So older stock of buildings. I mean, California alone. I mean, LA alone, we have like 1,000 buildings like that. You know, so-called non-ductile concrete structures built prior to 1972 for us is the you're gonna see the same failure mode. You're gonna see the same collapse patterns here, what you see in Turkey, here in LA, you know.
Wow.
And LA is actually ahead of other cities. You know, we passed ordinance to do seismic strengthening, identification strengthening of all those what we call non-ductile concrete structures. But you're talking about deadline of 20 years from now. You know, so yes, I mean, has to do that way because of the it's kind of dilemma. You can ask the building owners to, it's a privately owned buildings, you know, to fix it or repair it, strengthen it. It's easy to say that, but it's not like building owners that the money sits in there to strengthen buildings, right? Because strengthening actually it's cost effective in my opinion, because it usually costs about 5% or less of a replacement cost. But 5% a lot of money for the bigger, you know, big buildings. And so what building owners have to do, they have to borrow the money from a bank to do things like that, right? The problem is of that, this seismic strengthening really does not add any market values to it in this country. So how can you borrow the money if it doesn't add the appreciate the value of the building? You know, you can borrow money to add something or maybe even prettier so you can see the market value increase, right? But not the seismic strengthening. So that's a huge issue. And that's why there's no action. That's why government cannot force them to do it now. That's why it's such a long period to do things like that, right? To lessen impact. But problem is that in LA, I mean, I would be surprised that earthquake is not happening before 2000 and before that 20-year period we're talking about. You know, I mean, California, you know, we haven't seen it. Any great earthquake since 1906, quite frankly. I mean, that's the one that last really true disaster happened,
right?
You know, urban scale. And we haven't seen anything like that. So that's something we're going to see here. Just no guarantee. That's 100% guarantees to happen. We don't know exactly when yet. Could it be 20 years from now? Could it be right now as we speak? So, yeah, I mean, at the US, we have issues. And yeah, I mean, if you look at other countries, you know, from Colombia to India to just name it, I mean, this type of non-ductile concrete structure exists everywhere, and lack of inspection is something like a global thing. I mean, it's a global thing, and it's yeah, from Indonesia to everywhere. And I think inspection better, generally speaking, for like schools and public buildings. But once the commercial structures, privately owned, like apartments and stuff like that, it's just lacks a lot. That's the 95% of building stocks are. That's why you use the impact like that.
Wow. Yeah, pretty sobering. So we shouldn't rest on our laurels here in the US. It sure sounds like.
Oh yeah.
I know there's some questions here, but just really quick. What can our students in this class do to help ameliorate this situation? What can our students do to try to ensure that we build a more resilient society? That these inspections, for example, take place. You know, what can people actually do to in the sort of the general public?
I think each of us need to demand, right? If there's a public demand, I think it changes. Like for example, in Japan, there's a public demand for the better construction. If you take the Japanese subway, there's advertisement there, say that this apartment or condo is base isolated. You know, that's their marketing slogan, and then people pay premium for that, 10% more. But they see that that's a really cost-effective investment for their lives and for their assets. So there's a public demand for the higher seismic safety place in Japan. The reason is because that the Japanese, you know, we experience this humongous disaster every 5 years. So it's kind of prepared, you know, that kind of a thing kind of works. But obviously a place like a Turkey, especially the southern part of it, last earthquake is the, 100 years ago, you know, California, everything's way okay because we went through the Loma Prieta in Northridge in 1989, 1994. But people don't understand those are moderate earthquakes, you know, You know what, Turkey expends 1,000 times more energy. So no, are we prepared for this? No, we're not. I mean, we're trying. I mean, our inspection process is definitely much better than Turkey. I saw that. That's true. You know, but what the building stock is still saying. You know.
Okay, thank you. That's all right. That's good to know. Oh, I know Farzin has his hand up, but we had a question in the chat a little bit earlier. So Abe Powell asks, can you discuss the most effective bystander interventions and humanitarian relief efforts you observed in the aftermath of the earthquake? So what were the most effective bystander interventions and relief efforts?
Actually, that's the most important part of it. Most of the people being rescued by the neighbors. It's just the most important thing is actually participate, do it, because the you know, government is going to show up in 5 minutes. No, more like 24 hours, maybe, you know what I mean? So that 24 hours is so critical. Neighbors, communities, towns, cities, ourselves have to basically get on to rescue people. I think that kind of things like that that's considered best practice. It does happen in Turkey, obviously. I mean, you know, one of the most remarkable I've seen in the past was Mexico. You know, Mexicans is unbelievable. I mean, they self-organize this incredible high-tech disaster rescue team, you know, voluntarily by this huge machineries and equipments and stuff like that shows up, and they're more this is, you know, more or less people essentially go into the group of people. They actually are trained to go inside of the collapsed buildings to rescue people, you know, stuff like that. I mean, just unbelievable. So yeah, it's definitely the community involvement, bystander involvement, probably the most important aspect of the humanitarian condition right after the disaster.
Excellent. Oh, that's good to hear. All right, fantastic. And then Lisa Nguyen asked the question, have you seen any aid that has been donated from other countries, specifically the US, be put into use, like the monetary donations, the care packages? Has that been effectively used?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, Turkish government basically just say, hey, you know, we okay, you know, we can do this work. So a lot of you know, first aid or health components, they actually did that. They actually they are prepared for the Istanbul earthquake of a town of 20 million people, right? So they had a resource to allocate to the south. That was really fast. I think what is the best thing of what internationally in the US done is urban search and rescue. That's where the most of the money is spent on, you know, and those guides were effective. I mean, it was a really essential part of our international assistance in initial days to provide an urban search and rescue team. I don't know what the final total is. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised at 1,000 people being rescued. I mean, it's probably one of the most robust rescue operations I've seen like that, you know. So yeah, that was actually a good one. And I think that in the USAID, I think USA is very, it doesn't have a huge amount of money, but I think it's very effective. It's very effective to try to understand what is the effective way to spend the money to get going. So this is we're going to be collaborating with the USAID is the identification and the repair of the moderately, you know, light damaged that residential building. So you can have a people to safe place to come back, you know, fast as possible. After all, 2.5 million people live in tent or living somewhere else, right? And then you come back, and they are come back, and live in tent in especially informal tent, which many people do live. 100,000 people live like that. It's in bad condition. I mean, super cold out there, and now right now it's just a rainstorm coming through, and it just miserable condition. So yes, I think that kind of a thing is extremely critical.
Okay, excellent. Yeah, I know there are a lot of well-meaning people who want to do something, but you know, need some guidance. Farzin has his hand raised over there.
Yes, thank you, David. And I'm sorry that I came a little bit late to the presentation, but I want to ask a question that is a little bit away from the disaster that happened in Turkey, because we know the quality of the construction was a major part of the disaster being to this level. I want to come to the US or Japan or places that quality of the construction is okay. I'm not saying it's perfect, but it's relatively better than what we see in Syria, Turkey, other places. The question that I have is, what do you, as a practicing engineer and someone who has been in many disasters, I receive your emails after every disaster. You're the one who has been around and have seen, have experienced these disasters. What is it that the academic folks, people who are doing research, need to do to package their research? Because we are right now talking about items in our research that is very far away from the disasters that we see on the ground. What is it that is missing? What is it that we need to package and send it towards practicing engineers that they can use and stop disasters like Turkey, stop things that may happen in the US with the economical problem that they may generate after a disaster like this? What is it that we can do?
I think the obviously many discipline in universities and research institute, but probably at one of the engineers need is, I mean, technology is there. I think there's a good technological R&D components go through the research to become practice. In I think California case is super fast. There's applied technology council, which is the publish the guidelines quickly, and those guidelines become really essentially like almost like a use as a code really fast, so I think we have a very efficient system to have a technological innovation research to the practice. I think we are really good at that, and better than any other countries. I think I really do. But what's lacking is the support for communication methodologies and policies, and those are so critical. I mean, how can we make this somehow the building owners who will do seismic strengthen the building to be profitable? If we can figure that out, then we can save 1,000 lives and assets there. See, I think we tend to focus on public structures, right? I mean, we spend a lot of effort for schools and hospitals in California. So yes, they're fine, they're great. I mean, I'll be surprised those not functional, because the amount of effort we put it in and engineering and inspection is just like, it's incredible. But that's like a very small part of the assets. 95% of assets belong to privately, commercially. So that's at the important part of it. How are we going to deal with that? And California case is maybe a little bit fortunate. The fact is our building stock is different from like Turkey, right? Here, most of the people live in a wood house. Wood house tend to perform much better than non-ductile concrete, apartments, just no question. And many buildings are made of steel. Steels tend to do better than non-ductile concrete. We all know that. However, issues we have is that yes, we have a lot of older concrete structures exist all over the place. That's true, and also the fire after earthquake is going to be a big deal here. Fire after earthquake's never been an issue. Place like Turkey or Port-au-Prince, place like that made of concrete, right? It doesn't get burned. But LA, look where we live. I mean, a whole bunch of small houses, series of small houses. And the expectation of is somewhere over 1,000 or 2,000, ignition happens simultaneously after the major earthquake. If that happened within a day, just think about how incredible this disaster would become. Just like in 1906, San Francisco, look at how cities burned down, right? So we're gonna have some serious issue and a fire after earthquake because no fire department is ready for that kind of things. So, okay, so what does that mean? Which means that the public government cannot do so much. I mean, we rely on too much the public, government. If something happened, government can rescue us. Well, they cannot. Well, they can for small scale things going on, but not this kind of an incredible, great LA earthquake or San Francisco earthquake would happen. No government can help us, quite frankly. So each of us has to be done something right? So make sure that your house, that something happens, the natural gas stops immediately. If you live in an older house, make sure that your foundations, connections are correct. And I think things like that, how they get actually communication policy components of it, to the general public. That's it, and how to make a commercial sector to make an investment profitable, things like that. That kind of things is lacking. That's like totally lacking, huge gap, most important part of it. We're kind of missing out because so much easier to fix in the schools, right? Look at that. Turkish, how much they spent $2 billion in seismic strengthening in the Istanbul area. What's spent on? Schools, hospitals, public buildings. What happened to the rest of the stuff? Nothing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
We're in the kind of same place essentially for that,
Wow. Amazing.
Yeah,
All right,
well,
it is 11:02. I'm afraid we probably are running out of our time here. I don't know if I guess I'm supposed to go to to a UCDRN meeting, but maybe I could leave the Zoom open a little bit longer if Nico can stall the other meeting for a little bit. I don't know. Is it if people want to stay on and ask a couple more questions? Okay. You know what? If how do you feel? Okay, do you have to run off right now at 11? There are a few more questions that people probably would like to ask if you can hang on for a little longer.
Yeah, I'm good.
Okay, fantastic. Okay, so that's great. So in the chat, Elisa Macias asks, we know we need to retrofit many buildings, but okay, and I guess you already got this, so to a certain degree, but what else can California do to be better prepared for the next big quake? And beyond retrofitting the buildings themselves, what else can California do to be better prepared for the inevitable earthquake like this?
I think each of us need to have like 2 weeks of water, 2 weeks of food, and communication devices and the means. I think that'll be really important. So or even camping set. I think because as you can see, once the big things happen, affected maybe 10-20% of our population, which is a huge number, right? But 80% of people may not be affected, but we will strain that system if you're not ready for it. I think that's probably most important lessons I see from everywhere, and Japanese do well. They do have those 3 weeks, 4 weeks of supply of everything about it. So they're kind of self-contained. And the Sendai tsunami in 2011, I saw there's no food, nothing, but the people okay because they have their own things going on. So I think things like that would be really important to kind of lessen the impact to the humanitarian sector, so they can really focus on what's really needed. That's something we can do today, by the way.
Wow.
that makes a big impact.
Yeah, so being able to be self-sufficient, so you don't need the government help, so it can really go to the people that really need it. Yeah, I guess I can see that as being huge. Wow. Okay. Excellent.
And also obviously everything stops here. So, hopefully you have like a family of friends in some different cities so we can kind of relocate ourselves. That kind of a plans a little bit set up like that would lessen the impact to the emergency sector then.
Gotcha. Okay, excellent. And then Fortuna Morales, our Chief Sustainability Officer at UC Riverside, asked, this may be specific to university operations, but can you share anything from that perspective in terms of continuity? Were universities were they just shut down? What, if anything, did they do that we can learn from as a university? Did they play any important roles in the disaster relief? Did they play a role from an operational perspective?
I think at UC system suits. I mean, at any kind of universities, they're tied into the communities, right? Like Santa Barbara to everywhere, and it has a huge campus, huge area. It really needs to be part of the whole part of this response structure. We need a place for tents. We need the water. We need to have a gathering place. I think university, can be the place like that, and it should be placed like that, and it will be used like that, by the way.
Okay.
So that would be, like say, for example, UCLA campus started talking to USC campus, talking to the city of LA about it, what's their plan of the response structure look like, because 10 city has to build those places, and a UC system can be part of it, and not only just to provide the space, but provide the food and provide the water. I mean, there will be a lot of that kind of things coming through externally, the food and water, but to have that kind of place to be some logistic things in there, that would be the huge impact.
Okay.
And I think it so makes sense. because they will take over anyway. So mine was just kind of get things going now.
Okay, excellent. Yeah, this is something our emergency manager, Tom Stoner, is on with us right now. We should definitely we should definitely talk more about this. Okay, and then Abe Powell at UC Santa Barbara says, we are hoping that UCSB will develop the ability of the student body to deploy in an organized manner to assist the community after an earthquake or major disaster through more CERT training, which is great at UCSB, and formation of the UCSB Bucket Brigade. There is a huge potential humanitarian force on site that has never been used effectively after a disaster. We see the organization of this potential and use to address a need in a crisis as a major humanitarian aid force that is hiding in plain sight. So yeah, that's echoing what you're saying right there. But also not just the official university, but the volunteer groups within the university, which it's a community that can be tapped into.
Exactly. I mean, I talked about that how the Mexican do, right? It's a whole nation basically ready to step in, like 1 minute after.
Wow.
That's what they do in a very organized manner. So, I mean, at the Mexico City earthquake in 1997, no, 2017, I'm sorry, 2017 was prime example. I mean, the city and the national government almost stepped back a little bit to let people to organize this rescue mission because they're so effective, so incredibly organized. And so that kind of things, and I think some of the equipments having a campus is probably critical. When conduct a urban search and rescue, especially at the very fragile site, the movement of buildings and debris is very important because rescue team punch into this certain area, aftershock coming through, right? So monitoring of how debris is moving it, stuff like that is really critical aspect of it. So that kind of things can be, UC system can assist because yeah, I mean, again, there's not enough urban search and rescue team in the US alone to deal with this 1,000 building collapse in LA, right? Or wherever, San Francisco or Santa Barbara, San Diego would it be? And I think that kind of elements can be really helpful.
Okay. Excellent. And so as a university, should we be having like portable radios, walkie-talkies, other instruments, in advance, basically stashed away, charged up, ready to use at all times? Is that kind of the...
I think so. And I think maybe a discussion with the communities like a city or county you're in would be a really good one, because they have some certain ideas what they're looking at, and maybe even discussion with FEMA.
Yeah.
So that would be really helpful because you do have it at the huge, area, human capacity, network, technology, equipments, all the things you have there.
Yeah, huge resources, but if we don't know how to use them, when the time comes, then it's not helpful.
There. Yeah.
And so, what about drills? Do you think we're planning this fall to have an earthquake? Well, we have an earthquake drill every year, but we're planning to have an actual enactment this fall, and really building on that to try to really practice. What do you do when people are evacuated from buildings? People are injured. How do you bring aid? So is that kind of thing useful, you think, as well, like kind of these rehearsals?
I think that's extremely important. And by the way, the Professor Megro from University of Tokyo, who developed the so-called disaster imagination session they call, and that's one of the most effective things I've seen. And we use that for many different countries now.
Oh.
Essentially, what it is that each person imagine what would have happened. Okay, magnitude 7.5 happened, say 3 a.m. Where am I? What's going to happen to me? What's going to my family? What? Like right now, you know what I mean? Then what would it look like for next 24 hours? What would it look like next 3 months? So they can imagine through this process and identify what's like and what can be done to do right now. That's actually a very good exercise, by the way.
Like a mental rehearsal, basically.
Yeah, with a group of people, with the facilitators and stuff like that.
Can you send us information on that? I think that's
most definitely. Actually, Sabine Cast, she's a company. She actually is working with the University of Tokyo, and she's actually part of a PhD right now to do just that kind of things. So Sabine can basically connect with you. Sure, for sure.
Yeah, if you could send us that contact information, that we'd really appreciate that.
Yeah. Okay, I'll do that, David.
Excellent. Okay, let's see here. Any more questions from our group here? All right. Well, again, I can't thank you enough. This has been really illuminating, and I think certainly I learned a tremendous amount from this, and I think that our students will too, very definitely. And so this recording will be made available to our students. We're going to get the word out so everybody can take a look. And yeah, and also just plain thank you for the sorry, my camera is frozen here. Thank you for all the work that you're doing right now on the ground to alleviate the suffering of so many people. And yeah, please keep it up and let us know how we can help.
Thanks so much, David. I really appreciate it, and I'm really looking forward to collaborate with this UC network. I think that'd be great.
Definitely, yeah. The UCDRN would love to continue this collaboration. This is a great start.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thanks so much. Yeah.
All right. Thanks, everybody. We will sign off for now. Have a great rest of the day.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. Bye-bye.